Rich, I know you're really excited to have our guest on.
Absolutely.
So am I. Mr. Austin Aries, A Double himself, will be joining us in a couple minutes. But before we do that, I want to give a little plug to the pay-per-view this Sunday. Bound for Glory this Sunday on pay-per-view. It's the culmination of the Bound for Glory series, which I want to talk to Austin Aries about, and a lot going on. I'm a big fan of the Bound for Glory series, Rich.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a little old school because I really like the point system that they do.
You do like the point
so
system.
It kind of makes you want to follow
what's happening.
Yeah, it makes you want to follow TV more. Then it's a good incentive for fans because like everybody has somebody they want to root for, you know.
So let's not delay this anymore. Let's get Austin Aries on the line. Hey, Austin, how you doing?
Hello, gentlemen.
How's everything?
Hello.
So you got the pay-per-view this Sunday. Are you you're in an Ultimate X match? What are those like to do? Because I imagine they're like total insanity.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. You know, there's not a whole lot of psychology that you usually use in a normal type of match that's going to come to play in these types of spectacles, as I like to call them. You got the belt hanging up there 20 feet above the ring, and somebody got to climb up there and detach it. And we got Jeff Hardy in his first ever. Samoa Joe got added late. Chris Sabin, former world champion, who's I say he's got his post-championship boo-boo face on, and then the champion Mannix. So a lot of wild cards, a lot of factors, a lot of moving parts, and there's not really a good way to prepare.
I was about to say, how do you prepare for something like that? For someone like you that has been around the wrestling scene, you know, you did the Independents, you did Ring of Honor, you're doing TNA. Is there what is in your mind, the risk factor of doing this? Do you not like doing these kind of, high impact, the chance of getting hurt, it's high.
It's definitely an elevated risk. Ladder matches, Ultimate X matches. Yeah, the stakes are higher, the risks are higher. And that's something you have to mentally prepare for, or at least going in what you're in store for. And so you need to be smart about what you do out there. I'm going to go out there and try to win with using my heart. I got a big heart. I got some red wine, which is good for my heart. And hopefully that does the trick.
Is this part of the new gimmick, just showing up with a glass of red wine and observing the match from afar?
I've been known to come down to ringside with a glass of red wine to observe the match. I figure if you're going to go take a match in, it's entertainment. You might as well grab some popcorn and some wine and have a good time.
That's usually how I drive around with a full glass of red wine. So when everybody drives past me, they're like, "Oh, this guy's awesome."
has a nice glass of red wine.
I don't drink it. I just hold it up by the stem.
Yeah. No, I got it. I totally get it.
They're giving you the bird for driving, driving. You give them the toast with the red wine.
Exactly. I'm late for my dinner party.
Well, we were talking about gimmick matches right before we brought you on the show. And what is your least favorite type of match to be in?
Geez, my least favorite. The kind where I'm not getting paid?
Sure. I mean, that's an awful gimmick match.
Well, no. Yeah. The gimmick match where you gotta climb up and grab the $50,000 check, but it's not for real.
Yeah. What a big disappointment, right? The contract match that leads to no contract.
You gotta try traveling through the airport with that huge check, and then you get home, and then you realize you can't even cash the thing. You feel like a real dumbass. So,
could still use it as a blanket.
Listen, I haven't really, been afraid to be vocal that Ultimate X match isn't really something, isn't my favorite kind of match. It's the one I have the least amount of knowledge in. I've only been in one. I was victorious. But, I don't know that I have a least favorite kind of match. They all just present different challenges. And I think as, someone who prides himself on being well-rounded, I look forward to those challenges.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good pay-per-view. You were a world champion. I really enjoyed your run as world champion.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, a lot of people did. So now this kind of like for Austin Aries fans, this kind of, there's a lot of speculation on, if you win the X Division Championship, is it going to be an immediate drop and then challenge for the world title? I
haven't really thought that far ahead, to be honest. I'm focused on Sunday and win. Somehow I figure out how to get that championship belt down. Then I'll turn my attention on what I want to do with it. My whole thing is I just want to be an important part of what's happening at Impact Wrestling. I want to be in the forefront. I want to be someone that people look forward to seeing, people are talking about. And as long as I'm accomplishing those things, I'll let the championships and the accolades, fall where they fall.
How's TNA treating you, by the way? I mean, you've spent the last few years there. I think from what I remember, I know you're in Ring of Honor, but you did the motion capture for, I think, WWE 12, right?
Yeah, okay. I did.
I
actually did a couple of years of that, 3 years, I think. My best friend, Justin Leeper, who's actually the guy who helped get me into wrestling. It was his couch that I moved up on back in 2000. He was training in Minneapolis as well. He was also in the video game industry. He worked for THQ, who at the time was doing the WWE video games, and he brought some independent guys on who weren't under contract at the time, which I wasn't. And it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. I get to imitate Santino and his trumpet and and all sorts of wacky stuff. So it was a nice day's work, I suppose.
That is pretty cool.
I would imagine it would be fun to do it, getting to do all these different characters and getting paid to do it also. I want to kind of talk about your career from the start. You broke in 2000. Wrestling was different then. Over the last 14 years of your career, what are some things, positive and negative changes in professional wrestling, in your opinion?
Positive and negative changes. Well, I mean, I think the one overwhelming positive would just have to be, let's go with the negative first. We'll save the positive for a second. The negative, I think, some of the coolness factors kind of wore off of wrestling a little bit. As far as I remember when I was, right before I broke in, the late, 90s, wrestling was hot, and you had competition. You had a coolness factor for the people who were my age at the time, who were in college, and it kind of created a buzz. And for a while, wrestling was real popular, mainstream. Now I think if you look, it's not quite there. It's found its niche. Obviously, WWE is doing very well with what they do. They're mainstream and branching off. We've done that internationally. We've branched off with similar kind of offshoot shows. So, I don't know, man. That's a great question. Negative and positive. It's hard to say. I mean, I think the one thing is there's not going back even further. There's not a good foundation and system for young guys to learn. You obviously have the developmental territories for the various companies. You have Ring of Honor, which is still an integral place for guys to go and work higher caliber quality guys at a higher level and grow as performers. But I think it's the same problem that was still there. There's really no checks and balances, and there's not really a lot of reputable places for a lot of young people to turn. And now with the internet being more prevalent and people searching and being able to Google search how to get into wrestling, it's easier than ever to be kind of led down the wrong path and start a trend with groups of people who don't really know what they're doing and aren't really honing their craft the correct way.
So how did you break in? You said your friend helped you out, but what was that like for you? Initially, getting trained and breaking in. When you came into wrestling, there was still a WCW and a WWF, and you could there were places to go. That has shrunk down over the last couple of years, but what was that like for you? Was your end goal, well, I could go work for WWF, or I could be in WCW, and that'll be fine too? What was that like? I mean, just things that were going through your head at that point.
Man, honestly, he called me kind of out of the blue, and I was actually kind of packing my stuff up and was going to be heading out west, doing kind of some unscrupulous things that I don't care to mention in public. But, it was a fateful call to tell me he was trained to be wrestling because, again, back then, it wasn't like you Googled wrestling schools and find out how to get in. There wasn't the easy access that maybe there is now. Everything's been kind of opened up. So, I was a little skeptical, and I went up there and I saw the ring, and I didn't really have expectations, man. I saw that ring and said, wow, like, you actually can just do, like, you can do this? Like, you pay this guy money and you can get in wrestling, and I'm going away. So I begged Terry that first day, please, Terry, can I just get in the ring? Because I saw some guys in there, and I was like, man, like, those guys aren't very good. Like, and I wasn't that kind of wrestling fan that knew, like, good or bad that way. I never looked at wrestling like that. but I could tell these guys weren't like, it wasn't very good. And I was like, man, I know I can do better than that. So I just was chomping at the bit, and worked out a payment plan to pay the tuition and moved to my buddy's couch. And I just knew I wanted to do this. I knew, like, this is what I wanted to put my time, my effort in. This is what I wanted to say was my job in my career. And like you said, there was WCW, there was WWE, there was going to Japan, which was, something that was kind of popular, idea. I remember Eddie Sharkey telling me, like, a couple of months in, as only Eddie can, hey, kid, I think I did the Tajiri elbow off the ropes. And he'd probably never seen it before. And I just wanted to try it. And I did it, and he saw it, and he goes, that was great. You do that every match. And I was like, well, there's a guy who already kind of does. Get a mask, you'll go to Japan. And I was like, it's just that easy. Go buy a mask, and you go to Japan.
That's it. You're all set.
So, yeah, you're all set. So, I mean, yeah, there was lots of different avenues to make money. We had guys like Lenny Lane who were in camp there who were working with WCW at the time. That was a feasible place to go. So now you have TNA, you have WWE as the most feasible places. You still go overseas. There's a lot of ways I tell everyone that, I train or when I'm talking to younger guys, there's a lot of ways to make this your career, make this what you do with your life. If you just kind of get in where you fit in and find the places you can be an asset and make money. And if you love the business and you love what professional wrestling has to offer and the lifestyle that it provides, then you find out where your niche is, just like you guys have done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just stare at the wall all day and I just talk to myself.
This guy's too busy watching NWO footage from 1996.
I'll tell you, I got a nice glass of wine and I just watched Nitro from '99. It was an awful experiment.
Sure. But for some reason, somebody just keeps sending you checks. You're the only guy who gets paid to watch the debut of NWO
over and over again.
You grew up a wrestling fan?
Did I?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I thought you guys were having a conversation. I was just listening.
No, you're just part of the group.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I saw early 80s, I saw some AWA stuff on, and it just kind of grabbed me. Before that, it was like all the G.I. Joe toys. And then I saw the wrestling, and those got all put in the attic, and then it was getting all the AWA figures that they had back at the time. I think I had Carlos Colon and Rick Martel on my maybe my 9th birthday cake or something, 10th birthday cake, something like that.
You were probably the only kid with those.
I wish I would have kept them in the box, or in the package. But of course, you want to play with them. And I learned you start changing heads, and you could paint them up and give them new tights if they needed a fresh look. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I did. I was into sports and wrestling. You didn't really tell people you were into wrestling. It's cool to tell them you were into sports, but you tell me you're wrestling, you got to start answering a bunch of stupid questions, which to this day is kind of still the case.
Yeah, even as a fan, like the number one question you get is, at least like as an adult, like it's fake, right? Like,
right. I go, yeah, well, so's politics, but you got you people all buy into that, and we could go into religion, but we're not supposed to touch those two things, but.
I always find it amazing how people could watch like a movie like Die Hard and be like, oh my god, that was a great movie. Nobody goes and be like, that's fake. Bruce Willis is not really hanging off the building and blowing shit up. Like, that's not happening.
Or you go to an opera and you go, well, Jesus Christ, no one walks around singing all day. This is ridiculous. Let's get over here.
Do people say that to you when you meet someone outside of the wrestling bubble and they ask you what you do and you say I'm a professional wrestler? Like, what is their reaction to you?
It's first they do you mean like the UFC, like
yes, just like the UFC.
No, not quite. And I go, usually the easiest thing to say is like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Stuff on TV, and then they go, oh yeah, really? And then yeah, there's a number of ways that conversation goes. It can go, oh, that's cool, I used to watch it when I was a kid, or you get the, oh, you mean the fake stuff, or and then there's a whole range in between. So, I say we're the most real form of entertainment there is. That movie you talked about with Bruce Willis, he'll get as many takes as he needs to make that scene look great. He'll get a stunt double where he doesn't feel comfortable doing something. He has a rigid script he's got to follow that he had nothing to do with a lot of the time. And fancy camera angles to boot. So couple all those things up, and I'd say what we do is a lot more real because we get one take live, no stunt doubles, no rigid scripts. We go out there, we produce magic, and there's no safety net. So I challenge anyone to say that's not real.
That's awesome. Now take us through the Austin Aries name, because it's definitely, you know, like one of the best wrestling names like in the current circuit now.
Think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just was trying to, you know, think of something that at least had something to do with me, and I'm an Aries and kind of embody a lot of the characteristics. You can read all about that, I'm sure, on some astrological website. But and then I was just tossing first names around. I remember, I think I still have the notebook, and there's just all these like list of names and just ridiculous names. And then that one, like I remembered Austin Idol, and I was like, that guy, I remember Austin Idol had a good ring to it, and I was like, Austin Aries, it's like, at least has a good ring to it, you know. But honestly, I thought it would be something that, like, my first match was coming up, and you know, I hadn't really thought about it much. I was just so in the like learning like the craft in the ring, like I didn't really have tights. I wore some black spandex from the athletic store that I hiked up, and I, you know, borrowed a pair of my buddy's boots for a while, and I had to think of a name, and I was like, man, I don't have a name. So I figured it would just change in a week or a month, or, you know, sometime down the road, and it just kind of stuck. So I'm glad you dig on it. You know, it does have a little bit of a ring to it. So, but you know, some people goof sometimes, and you know, say if I ever had to change or whatever, you know, like Pistol Peter Pisces, or you know, Austin Aquarius is something I've heard before. You know, so it's all good.
The reason I dig it, because as soon as you hear that name, for me at least, I picture just like a really seedy heel, you know. Yeah. And it definitely works, because like a lot of your heel work was just like, I remember I'd be watching you know, TV on my couch, and just like a lot of the stuff you did in TNA as a fan, you know, and as like a conscious fan, you're kind of like, oh boy, this guy's a prick. I love it. I want to watch more, you know, and you kind of eat it up. And I think that was like the name definitely helped that kind of like persona, you know.
I'll definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, you know, hey, I got a range personality wise, and I can dial up whatever part of that I need to. And sometimes it's definitely the prick mode. So I can be a prick if I have to be. I don't want to be, but unfortunately, a lot of times society just brings that out in me. So
do you prefer working heel or face?
I prefer going out there and just kind of being myself. You know, like it's so hard to. I really think wrestling should transition more to shades of gray in some ways, and just have strong, authentic characters. Because if you really look at, you know, most dramas on television or movies, it's all shades of gray. It's a lot of times, you know, you Sons of Anarchy. You know, who are the good guys? You know, the outlaws. So that, and wrestling is supposed to kind of mirror real life in a lot of ways. So I just think I'm a polarizing figure. As long as people have a strong opinion about me on one side of the fence or the other, I'm garner a reaction. And as long as I garner a reaction, then I feel like I'm doing my job. So, you know, I'm not everybody's flavor, but, you know, that's okay.
I mean, as long as it's believable. I mean, your character is believable, and you portray it in a good way because you're pulling it from some reality. There are a lot of guys that can't do that. You know, you take a guy and you make him into a heel, and it just doesn't work, and the opposite. For who you are, Austin Aries, who are your influences from professional wrestling?
Well, you know, I grew up watching wrestling in the early mid '80s, and I grew up watching a lot of Crockett and you know, World Class and things of that. So I mean, I don't know that I've consciously ever like tried to pull from anybody specifically. I think subconsciously the stuff maybe I was drawn to younger is stuff that maybe has come out in my work. But you know, you talk about guys like the Horsemen and Flair, the Freebirds. You know, Bockwinkel. So I guess as I start listing those guys off, and Bobby Heenan was someone who I was drawn to a lot. You are kind of talking about more of the pricks, so to speak, but the guys that you love to hate. So, and then as I got a little older and got more into the actual in-ring part of wrestling, which wasn't something I really looked at a lot growing up. You know, then you start going to the Eddie Guerreros and the Benoits and you know, and Jericho as a guy. You know, some of the smaller guys who are working that, you know, junior heavyweight style and bringing some of that, you know, more work rate, as the fans like to say, to the ring.
Breaking into professional wrestling, I mean, you're not 6'8", you know, 340. Was that stigma of you got to be a big guy still in existence at that point? Did that affect you in any way when you started, you know, trying to become a professional wrestler? Was that in the back of your mind, like, I'm not, you know, 7 feet tall, 400 pounds, this is going to be difficult.
The stigma's still there, I think, and I never thought about it. I didn't. I mean, I guess it wasn't until after maybe my first time, going and doing some stuff with WWE where they just kind of were like, you're too small. Where I was kind of like, oh, really? Like, I was better than like every guy out there. You had guys that were 6'6" in there with 300-pound dudes who blew sunset flips and got up and pointed and tried blaming it on each other.
But is that insulting? I mean, do you get insulted when someone comes to you and says like, "Oh no, you're too small"? Because to be honest, and we were talking about this right before, the product of wrestling has improved tremendously over the last 20 years. I think in match quality. And I think that's attributed to the fact that you're not having two guys that are 500 pounds just, pushing each other in a ring.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line really is that everyone watches wrestling and has different expectations of what they want to see in it. And the people who are writing the checks are going to get to have their perception of what they think wrestling is be what people see as wrestling. And that's just the reality. At the end of the day, this is the entertainment business, and to my knowledge, there's no size requirements on being entertaining or being good at your craft. And I think there's a lot of guys that have proven that, and 20 years ago, and there'll be guys that will continue to prove it for the next 20, 40, 60 years. So there's a place for all sizes and shapes in wrestling. I mean, and really it should come down to if you can bring the goods to the table and you can deliver for what you're being asked to do.
Absolutely. Now, what do you do differently in your personal life that let's say maybe like other workers don't? I know you mentioned you have a completely plant-based diet.
Yeah, and I also never been married and I don't have any kids. That's
why you got a full head of hair.
That's what, honestly, man. I went back to my 10-year high school reunion a few years back, and I could just go married. 2 kids, lives down the street from his parents, married, divorced. Like, it was just, yeah, man, that stuff ages you. That's no joke. And yeah, I'm not saying at some point, but right now I got enough on my plate where I don't need the added pressure and commitment to something like that. So yeah, I've gotten really big into my diet, my lifestyle. Not eating any animal products. I started in 2000 as a vegetarian, and then about a year and a half ago went full vegan. And I could probably talk another 2 hours on all my reasons into it.
Well, I was going to say, why'd you go into it?
Initially it was just I started thinking, and I started thinking about my health, and red meat being good for me or not being good for me. I've been talking to some people I was kind of rolling with, and they were like preaching like red meat and pork's not good. So I was kind of like, up to that point, I never thought about what I ate. And I don't think a lot of people think about what they eat beyond does it taste good, how much does it cost, and how much time is going to cost me to get. And beyond that, they're not really thinking about what they're putting in their bodies. And we spend a lot more time thinking about the kind of shirt we wear than what we're putting on the inside of us that has a lot more effect on our overall health and well-being. So that was the beginning of the journey. Then coming across some corporate slaughterhouses, and just seeing the enormity of them, just how huge they were and the conditions. It's not what people think. It's not like my grandparents' farm was. And there was a big disconnect, I think, that I had, and I started thinking about it. And as I started learning and researching and actually thinking instead of kind of burying my head in the sand as to where my food comes from, it was easy to make the choice to make the decisions I have. And I think there's enough evidence to say that it's a healthy way to lead a life, and that for me, morally and spiritually, I'm not really too into killing things and eating things that used to be living creatures. So it works for me.
Being on the road and being a professional wrestler, is it difficult to keep that type of lifestyle up where you may not have access to the type of food you want to eat at 2 a.m?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just all about where your priorities are, where your commitments are. So I just always go prepared. I always carry certain things with me, certain protein sources, whether it's pumpkin seeds, different packets of lentils that I can have with me. Obviously, I always carry some vegan protein powders. I want to always have some kind of protein source and food with me because, yeah, a lot of places, listen, it's not about finding my kind of food at 2 in the morning. It's about finding any kind of quality food at all. When you start doing research and you start realizing the quality of the food that's putting 90% of what's in front of us, it's really hard for me to eat most places in general. So, when I go to a supermarket, 85% of that place is kind of no good to me because I don't want to eat genetically modified foods. I don't want to eat processed foods. I don't want to eat low quality foods that are being shipped over to China, processed, and then shipped back. And that's a lot of what your meat and your dairies and your meat products and animal products are. So it's where you put your priorities, and it just takes a little extra effort and a little extra time, but it's not too much of a challenge if you do those things.
I'm actually amazed when I hear stories from people that have been able to kind of change their lives and kind of pick up a diet like that. I'm always one of these people that I watch one of these documentaries and I say, oh my God, I got to do this. I don't want to eat meat. And then, I'll be okay for about a week.
Sure.
And then someone will bring me a burger and I'm like, oh crap. Like now it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
I can't break it.
It's a transition. I think it all starts with wanting to do it and having a commitment to it. But you have to set yourself up for success and not failure. And this has been a 13-year journey for me doing this.
Wow.
And I didn't do it overnight. And there's a lot of substitute meatless products out there, whether you're talking about hamburgers or hot dogs or Italian sausages or breakfast patties. I mean, they make all these things. At the end of the day, they might not be a lot better for you in the long run. But as a transition period of getting away from that type of food, it can be helpful in kind of, not feeling like you're doing without and still satisfying some of those cravings. And, I still to this day, I'll eat those things occasionally. I eat, make BLTs with, veggie bacon and things like that and satisfy a lot of my cravings. A lot of our cravings come from condiments. So once you put ketchup and lettuce and mustard and pickle on something, how much the dead cow are you actually tasting?
Delicious.
I had a question for you. I've asked a couple other people that have been on the show this, and I'd love to get your point of view of it. The wrestling fan, the pros and cons of being in professional wrestling and having fans. What are tell me about some. Have there been any really negative, bad experiences you've had with the fans? At times they're very critical and they think they know everything, but for the most part, people that are watching on TV are not the ones, following you around at 3 a.m. trying to see where you live. What are some negative things that have happened with the fans with you?
I think it's important, like you said, man. There's a wide range of wrestling fan, and there is always going to be a vocal minority that is going to be negative and be looking to bring the negative out. And then a lot of wrestling fans and they're just watching it for entertainment. They don't know how to quantify a 3-star or a 5-star match, and they don't view wrestling for that kind of entertainment value. I think the negative thing is just when people lose respect and forget that I'm a professional wrestler. I'm also a human being and a person. Just like they are. And there's just a certain level of respect that should be brought when you deal with other people. And, there's been a couple times where people have crossed the line and put their hand on me in aggressive ways. And, I had to defend myself. And, I don't go out to, punch fans or knock them out. But there's a certain line that, where you have no choice. And
why do you think that is? Do you think it's because they actually believe that you're this bad guy because of your character, or are these guys trying to test you because you're a wrestler and they want to be a tough guy with you?
Well, I think in society in general, we've kind of that's the culture we've created. We don't really hold people accountable for their actions. We don't really teach people manners. We don't really teach people respect. We teach people to be selfish, and we teach people that they can always get away with things if they have money or if they can, in this society now, if anything happens, I'll sue you. And you have corporations, and you have companies that are scared to death of that, and that they basically cater to that mentality, and they put procedures in place that dictate that. And so that I think that's what it is. There's no true repercussions. Go back 30, 40 years, and if you did something like that to a wrestler and you did that, you were taken care of, and nobody thought anything more of it. Nowadays
you're lawyering up,
and you got to worry about the lawyers and the corporate sponsors, or he's going to sue. And I've had it happen a couple times. At the end of the day, I think the fine line is when you put your hands on me as just a human being, whether or not I'm in a show. I said, if you were at a rock concert and you hopped on stage and put your hands on the guitarist or the lead singer and they defend themselves and knocked you out, nobody would think twice. Because I'm a professional wrestler, I'm supposed to maybe sit there and allow that to happen. But I disagree with that theory. I think there's a line you don't cross, a level of respect that should be kept, and most fans do that. And I love the passionate fans. I like the guys that are at the airport at 6 a.m, timidly sitting there with their books, waiting for the right opportunity to ask for a couple of autographs. We need those guys because that's what keeps us going. We need those guys to be excited about what we're doing because that excitement resonates to the mainstream. But those small negative people that are sprinkled in there, they don't represent the larger picture. But sometimes they can be the most vocal, so they're the ones that get the attention.
Awesome. That's a good answer.
Yeah,
that's a good answer. Before we wrap it up, we got one real quick one for you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do I see myself in 5 years? Man, I'll be 40. I'll be in my 40s. Is that crazy?
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah. I still see myself doing this, provided I'm happy, healthy, successful. Hopefully I'm making some tour with one of my musical projects, giving speeches on how to lead a vegan lifestyle as someone in fitness, and wrestling full time as the world champion. I think that would be a pretty full plate. I could probably handle that.
Awesome. Are you in a band?
Yeah, I got a couple of projects going right now. It's something I did back in the day before I got in wrestling, and I had to make a decision early on, kind of where to put my focus. And obviously I went towards wrestling, but I knew I'd revisit the music at some point. And got something going down here in Florida with some guys that I'm excited about, and just started something with some guys in Ohio that were kind of, it's crazy, man. Technology nowadays. It ain't like the little 4-track cassette, recorders I had back, 10, 15 years ago. You got all these digital files, and you can basically everyone can be their own studio if they want. So, it's a lot of fun. It's another creative outlet, and hopefully when the time's right and I got something that I feel proud enough to put out there, we'll put it out for some public consumption.
All bluegrass, right?
Little bluegrass mixed in with a little pop.
I think that fits you perfectly.
What are you playing, if you don't mind?
Think of what's Alan Thicke's kid's name? See how old I am? I don't even know.
Robin Thicke.
Robin Thicke?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was his wife. See, I don't know what's going on. So not in tune. Yeah, it's definitely like that. It's definitely stuff to get the ladies' panties down around their ankles. And no, I'm kidding. It's a couple tracks I played for some friends. They're saying it's kind of it's a heavy rock with kind of a classic feel to it in a way. So
awesome.
But yeah, just I don't know if it really has a category. I guess when it comes out, people can all decide. But I'd go with kind of a heavier rock with a little classic feel.
Excellent.
Very cool, man.
Excellent.
All right. Well, do you have anything to leave us with before we sign off with you?
No, man. I mean, I appreciate you guys coming on here. Obviously, getting ready for Sunday, Bound for Glory, San Diego. Our biggest event of the year. If you haven't checked out TNA Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, now's your chance. And as far as I go, you can follow me at Austin Aries on Twitter, and keep up to date with what I'm doing when my website's coming out, when my music's coming out. Learn about my boy at Motion Performance Fitness, Adam Davis, who keeps this jacked vegan strong. So thanks, guys.
And you got to go wrestle like in an hour, right?
Well, I'm not. I don't think I'm scheduled to wrestle tonight, but there's a little something I got to take care of. So I'm gonna roll out of my little spot here and make sure I turn the fireplace off and go take care of some business.
Excellent.
Awesome,
Austin Aries, everybody. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. That was awesome, huh?
That was awesome.
Austin Aries.
Greatest man that ever lived.
Awesome guy.